Welcome to Thriving in the Messy Middle, the podcast for women leaders who are ready to shift from just surviving to thriving. I'm your host, Amy Wilkins, and today's guest is someone who truly embodies thriving through change, Kelly Wenzel. She's known for building brand love, world-class teams, and leading with purpose, passion, and empathy. Kelly is a 7-time CMO with an impressive track record, building and scaling marketing strategy across fast-paced startups and global powerhouses like Amazon. She's a career B2B tech leader with deep expertise in growth marketing, brand, commercialization, and leading large-scale change initiatives. She's also been recognized with numerous accolades, including Working Mom of the Year, Best Executive, and Brand Program of the Year. And she served on the board of She Runs It from 2016 to 2021, championing mentorship and the advancement of women in marketing, media, and tech. Today, we're honored to learn from her journey, navigating complexity, change, and those uncertain moments in the messy middle. Hi, Kelly. It's so good to see you.
You too, Amy. So good to be with you.
I am so happy to have you on this podcast today. And I am telling you, folks, you are in for a treat. Kelly is such an amazing human, and you are just going to love what she has to share today. But I'm going to start by inviting you to share a little bit about yourself. And I would love for you to just, share whatever comes to you that you'd like people to know about you.
Sure.
And feel free to blend professional and personal.
Yeah. I don't think you could separate the two. I wouldn't want to. So for me, I'll start with the career though. I have spent my career in technology in B2B tech specifically, although my last 4 companies have had a B2B2C model, changed industries a number of times. But what the golden thread is, I am a technology marketer. So I've been a CMO 6 times. I am about to start my 7th time as a CMO. So I've spent the last 20 years in C-suite. But I am one of those rare and I believe truly blessed individuals that I'm actually doing a job I absolutely love. So even though I am like ready dating myself, I've been doing this 30 years, more than 30 years. I can still tell you I honestly love what I do. So lucky me. And then I have the benefit of being married to my best friend, who's also in tech and in sales. So that's pretty fun. Like sales executive, marketing executive, we get to understand each other's job really well and support each other really well, which I think is amazing. And proud mama of 15-year-old twins, boy, girl, who are just like the joy of my life. And it's funny how often, as I was thinking about podcasts and the messy middle and what that really means, a lot of that journey for me has been navigating work and motherhood and how you do both, right? Like be a great executive and be a great mom at the same time. It's totally possible, but it's also really like hard.
You and I did chat a little bit about the messy middle, and I would love it if you would share, a story that you have from your time as a rising leader and what it was like in the messy middle.
Yeah. It's funny, Amy, as I thought about this, I realized there's lots of mess. I literally have a bulleted list of stories I could share about mess in the middle of the career, even now, mess recently. But I figured, knowing your audience, I would dial back a little bit in the Wayback Machine and look at like some of my up and coming times that were messy where I really feel like I learned a lot. And I will go one to like mid-career. I was only woman in the C-suite. And I have to say, spent a lot of my journey in tech as the only woman in the C-suite, only woman in the executive team, and not intimidated by that at all. But one of the lessons, I was at a particular company, I won't name names, but I'll just say it was that toxic might be too strong of a word, but it was definitely not a healthy culture. And it took me a while to realize it. And because it wasn't like active discrimination, it wasn't anything so overt. It was much worse. That it was really subtle. Like for instance, I would go into an executive meeting with an idea and, I tossed it out, didn't go anywhere. I'd be like, man, I thought that was a really good idea. And because I'm persistent, I don't give up. Next meeting, I do the same thing. I toss the same idea. I try a little bit of a different spin. Doesn't go anywhere. Man, what am I doing wrong? Third meeting, my male counterpart raises it, and suddenly it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I remember going back to my office completely gutted and like, wait a minute. What just happened here? Why was it a good idea when he said it? And it wasn't a good idea when I said it. And I realized just how subtle some of the undermining can be. But the reason I'm sharing this story was because it actually took a few incidences for me to wake up and smell the coffee, so to speak, and see what was happening. But I had one of these stakeholders. It wasn't the same one who, used my great idea, a different one, same company though, same environment, realized that one of my leadership styles is to be very direct. Just tell it like it is, and open and honest. And I'm super proud of that, right? Like, I think that's key to building a great relationship, and it's part of my leadership style. And I would go into these meetings with this peer, open kimono, like, this is how I see it. This is what's going on. This is what's working. This is what isn't working. And it took me way too long to realize that I was making a very strategic mistake. And that was, I assumed, bad word, that my candor was reciprocated, that my intent for honesty and transparency was reciprocated, but it wasn't. And what I learned from that exercise was, whoa, candor is an amazing thing, and I will never sacrifice it. Never. However, what I learned is that candor is a two-way street. And if you don't set those rules in advance, and you're the only one being honest and transparent and candid, and you don't have that same agreement with your peers, you are putting yourself into a very vulnerable place. You're just like, hey, I'm going to leave it all out on the table. And basically, I'm setting myself up to be manipulated, and to, like, the transparency ended up not serving me at all. And I will tell you, I felt shame for a while at how long it took me to wake up, because I thought I was doing the right thing. And on paper, I was, but it was in a pretty risky environment. And I didn't have the maturity, I think, at the time to realize that I can bring all my leadership DNA and my style everywhere I go, but every environment and peer set is going to be different. And I needed to modulate.
So that's really great. So, and what does that look like on the court? Like, when you're entering new environments, because that is happening to people in our audience, right? Where they're joining a new organization, or they may have even gotten promoted in an existing organization, because you and I both know that changes the dynamic.
Totally.
What did you bring with you, and what would you advise people?
Well, first of all, it's like, you have to build your relationships and know. But I think the thing that, and look, it's not the only time I've made this mistake. I've made it later as well, where I've given someone, like, I believe in a trust as really one of the dynamics of a successful leadership team, but trust is earned. And what you have to do as a leader is regularly inspect, do their actions match their words? And if you're not doing that, and you're not literally taking the moment for yourself to say, hey, is this all, is there any dissonance here? Are things not lining up? And when they don't line up, what am I going to do about it? Rather than just, coast along and assume, oh, we're on the same page. Our meetings are very convivial and great to the face, and everything is very nice. You can have really great surface relationships and still have low trust.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the onus is on you as a leader, that you have to recognize, let me inventory this. Are actions congruent with words? Does everything line up? Or actions lining up with intent? And it's on you to do that work and not take everything at face value. I'll share another one, Amy, that really stands out for me. It was, I don't even know if you know this. So, I was based in New York for many years. Then I relocated from Manhattan out to Seattle to take an executive job with Amazon, to go be the global CMO of Amazon Pay. And I almost didn't even take the interview. So I look back at what was, I would actually say to this moment, the single greatest career decision I made was taking that role at Amazon. And I almost missed out because of self-doubt. Amazon has this amazing reputation for being such a high bar for talent. And I was literally trapped in this, like, why do they want you? You don't know anything about payments. Like, you're a great B2B executive, but you don't know payments. Literally the itty bitty shitty committee in your brain, like that, that troop of voices was so loud that I almost didn't go to the interview. And I look back and think what a tragedy and a travesty that would have been of my own making. And do you know why I got caught out of that trap?
Tell me.
I had a network of close peers and advisors. I had an early executive coach who taught me build your network. Build your network, build your network. I'm sure some of your listeners have heard of this concept of like have your own personal board of directors. And I did. And I was, wide open, sharing my vulnerability with them, full of self-doubt. And they literally kicked my ass 6 ways to Sunday. And they were like, Kelly, what are you doing? Stop.
Get out there.
Like knock it off. And of course,
Right.
I went. I crushed it. I took the job. I embarked on what was a 5-year journey and truly one of the most transformative periods of my career, but I almost missed out. And the lesson there was just, you cannot give in to self-doubt. You are always going to have those voices who are trying to tear you down. And they're usually here, right? They're your own.
Yeah. So, and I heard a couple of other things in that, what you just said too, because I heard you say, I got an executive coach who encouraged me to build my network.
Yeah.
Right. And to get that circle of influence that would be able to guide you when you were in those moments of like, where you're letting the itty bitty shitty committee. Yeah. Do the talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great advice. I got that executive coach at a low point in my career, right after the twins were born. And it's not that career was bad or anything, but I will definitely say I was struggling under the weight of twin babies at home, trying to navigate travel. Like, I think I was also super tired, not sleeping a lot.
Sure.
I think it might be Churchill, the quote, fatigue makes cowards of us all, that when you are tired, you're not at your best. That was definitely me. And one of her pieces of advice that I've never forgotten was you need to have, you should always be networking, even if it isn't for your personal board of advisors, it's for when I come up with an industry question. Oh, I've got an expert I can go to. When I need guidance, when I might be looking for the next thing, you've already got relationships in place. And it was tremendous guidance. And I thank God for it, right? And I thank God that I had a circle of, it happened to be women who were ready to just kick some sense into me, or I should say talk some sense into me at the time when I needed it.
What's so amazing too about that is, as a mother, right, with twins in a high-powered job at the same time, you made time to network.
Yeah. And it was,
right?
you're onto something, because at that period in my career, I was commuting into Manhattan. It was 90 minutes each way. That was 3 hours of my day that I resented, right? So making the choice to stay in the evening and do an industry event, stay and the evening and go to a networking, party or whatever, but it was a conscious choice, and it was, but I have to fill this cup. Right. And recognizing it's all about trade-offs. And if you're willing to view it as the trade-off it was definitely worth it. And I can say that and see it now. In the moment, it felt a little bit more challenging. But the other thing is that if you allow it to, your network is going to fill your cup. right? Might have been time away from the kids, and it was indisputable, but that filled my cup in a different way. So it was a great investment of time.
Kelly, you are an amazing leader. I've witnessed you with your teams. I just know the kind of leader that you are. And, there's been a ton of transformation and it's
Mm.
continuing, right, as we speak in your industry, right, in MarTech and all of that.
Yeah.
How have you supported your teams when you're going through messy middle moments as a team?
Yeah. I would say, like, one, I'm bringing a lot of just principles of good change management. And anybody who's interested in transformation and change, I would tell them to go read John Kotter. His work is some of the best. I think his famous white paper is like 8 Steps to Managing Change. That was my Bible for a long time about navigating work change. But it's amazing how much of that you can actually carry into your own, professional journey. You are right. I tend to be drawn towards leadership assignments where there is a big transformation. Usually there's some sort of reset required. Either we're building out the team, scaling up the team, making some step change with a new product or a shift from services to software or going into a new sector. And one of the things that I have found is really key for the team is you have to have your North Star, right? So my job as a leader is, where are we going? Where are we now? And a very candid and honest assessment about where are we now. And then it's constant calibration and communication along the journey, right? So there's candor here again, just like my, keep banging that drum. Good communication, right? Where are we? Where are we going? Oh, wait a minute. This is where I thought we'd be now, but we're not there. So we need to pivot. We need to adjust. Just be transparent about it. So I think that really comes down to honest and open communication, being willing to take an honest inventory of where things are, what's working, what's not, what are we going to change. And I really believe that comes down to, I guess I would say, candor, authenticity, and integrity. So the candor is like, be willing to tell the truth, tell the truth, be willing to put the hard things into the room. Authenticity, and, tell it like it is, be direct, be honest, be candid, be transparent, and be vulnerable. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then be a leader of integrity, right? Say what you mean and do what you say. And as long as you are doing those things, right, both as a leader and I think as a professional, you'll be fine. You'll be good. But the reason I say that some of this principle really, Amy, applies back to your career journey is, if you're going to lead transformation, what did I start with? North Star. What do you want? Where are you going? What does success look like? What does it look like to win? And what is your identity? How do you want to show up in the world? And I got 2 tools in the middle of my career that have been invaluable. One, you're going to know well, Lisa McCarthy from Fast Forward Group. I had my network of women held a workshop, and Lisa was the keynote, the featured speaker, and she had us write a vision statement. And that sounds very lofty, or it shall still sound like, a vision statement. It was this very inspiring format, blank sheet of paper. Fast forward a year, what do you want your life to be like? On every dimension, your personal life, your professional life, your job, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your employees. How are you paid? What are you doing? How much are you traveling? It is your time to put it all out onto the paper. I find that exercise incredibly fun. And, once I got into it, at first it feels daunting. It's like, I don't know, is it going to be big enough? Who cares? Just start writing. You can refine it later. And I will tell you, I have carried that forward to this day, and I will even write vision statements for small things.
What I love too is that it started with a group of women coming together, and I'm even wondering, like, how wonderful that would be, right, for the folks who are listening to grab some people and do it together.
Yeah,
because there's something about others witnessing our vision and where we're going that has them also be able to support that journey forward.
There's a great truism. An early boss of mine once said to me, I walked into his office. I've written a LinkedIn post about it. Your folks could find it on my profile. They have to go back many years. I think it's over a decade old. But he said to me one day, he's like, Kelly, you're such a battery for me. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he goes, there's two types of people in life. There's the people who charge you up. Those are your batteries. And the people who weigh you down. Those are your anchors. You're always a battery for me. Thank you. And I remember being like, oh, wow, amazing. But that women's group that you talked about, that you referenced, I started because I recognized some other women who were batteries for me. And I went to them and I said, are you willing to be in connection with me? Can we get together like once a quarter for lunch? And just found 2 or 3 and invited each of them to bring someone who was a battery for them. And you know this well because you're part of this group.
I do.
That group of ladies is still meeting. What is this? 8, 9 years later, more than? And not everybody's still in Manhattan. And
nope.
But it was because those were the people who were going to fill your cup.
Yeah.
And someone else brought the fast forward thing to the table and we all benefited from it. Yeah. So I agree with you. If you can find your tribe or build your own, right? Like attract like, how powerful.
And why don't we go ahead and just like do what you said and look for the people who are our batteries. Like start with that when you're even trying to think about it. Because I notice there's a struggle sometimes in the folks that I coach. And we start talking, they're like, I need to network. And they get that like this is going to be hard or, and, to get started, sometimes it does feel a little uncomfortable, right? And it's interesting to say, yeah, but who lights me up, right?
Mm.
Where do I get that charge from? Start there, right? It's beautiful, Kelly. Thank you for sharing
and everybody's
that.
got them. If you just do a quick inventory, who energizes me when I spend time with them? I want more of those. And I find people are honestly so honored to hear that they're a battery for you. Of course, they're probably going to want to give you more time. And I'm just going to go back because I said I got 2 gifts during this time. One was that fast forward vision statement. And then the second was also from my coach. I started a new job. I left the toxic environment. I was pulled forward by a board member to go join a new company. And I remember talking to my coach. And she's like, so tell me what you want your personal brand to be. That was easy, right? Like I rattled it off. Candid, authentic, powerful, high impact, kick ass. Like, I had all the words, right? And then she asked me a question that stopped me literally in my tracks, which was, what are you going to do to ensure you show up that way? And I was like, oof, huh? Like, it just caused me to take this, it was like a pattern interrupt. It made me go, wait a minute. I just kind of thought I'll just show up and be me. Right. And I'll create the brand I want. But I loved that she was pushing me to be more intentional. Okay. You want to show up as strategic and impactful. What are you going to do to make sure that happens? What interactions are you going to make sure? What artifacts are you going to bring to meetings or, and just that extra little push to say, how do you want to show up? Which again, if you think about it, it starts with, again, that North Star, right? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? And once you have that answer, then you can deconstruct and say, oh, all right. So what do I need to do to show up that way?
Yeah.
And just be more intentional and thoughtful.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like, how will they know I'm that?
Right.
Right.
And
like
so
literally thinking about it.
Yeah. And Amy, women so often, a good friend of mine who not my coach, but who is a coach, and she wrote a great book called The Unwritten Rules of Women's Leadership. And one of the unwritten rules is don't do invisible work. And part of it is we often, this is a gendered thing, but it's not limited to women, but we often just do the work and assume it'll get noticed.
Yeah.
Like just do good work and that's enough. And I'm here to tell you that's not enough. It's great. And that's a great starting point. But if you want more, you're going to have to do a little more.
I would love to have you share what advice you would have given to your younger self.
The first piece of advice that I would give if I could rewind the clock, I would give anything to get back all the hours that I wasted on self-doubt. Literally the self-flagellation, the worry, the anxiety, the stress, the playing out all the things, the fear in my stomach. I would literally tell myself, Kelly, take a chill pill, right? You've got this. Stop with the agonizing over, are you good enough or are you not good enough?
Yeah.
That would be first and foremost. The second thing I would say, Amy, and this is like super personal, but we had a really difficult fertility journey. And it took us 3 years to conceive, multiple surgeries, multiple miscarriages. It was a very dark time, just personally. And it meant, also in the C3, trying to hold down jobs. And I remember coming home from work. We were in a penthouse condo in Jersey City, teeny tiny little space. And I would go into my closet in the master bedroom, shut the door to the closet, sit on the floor. Literally, I got like jackets and stuff hanging over my head, and I would sit there and bowl. And why did I do that? Because it made my husband so sad when I cried, when we got another setback or another month went by or another this, whatever. And I was just so sad all the time. As a woman, you spend most of your time trying not to get pregnant. And then when you want to get pregnant, you just kind of think it will happen. It doesn't. And anyway, very dark time. And I ultimately did get pregnant, help with IVF, and after a miscarriage. And I use my twins as a lesson all the time, which is to remember to have faith. Faith that things are going to work out and that you can be in the dark and in the muck and in the hurt and in the mess, right?
Yeah.
But the mess always comes before the morph, right? Like there's always great change that's coming on the other side of that mess. And what I have found to be true over and over and over again is that when I'm in that darkest of dark moments, I would love to just go wrap my arms around that little self and give her a hug and say, "Babe, it's all going to be okay. You just have to trust that even when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, that it's there." And that has proven true professionally, even so many times that I just remind myself, think of the twins. Dark time, lots of setbacks. You didn't think it was going to happen. First IVF, you get pregnant and then you lose it, crushing. But you know what? I was meant to have two. I was meant to have a boy and a girl. I was done in one. God had a plan. I just couldn't see the plan at the time. And I would give anything to go back and just, ease the hurt, because the mess also can hurt. It feels sad. It feels dark. It feels lonely. You can feel despairing. And I mean, how lovely would it be to reach into that person who's struggling and just give them a hug? So I hope your listeners who are struggling will look at me and feel this as like a virtual hug and just, it's going to be fine.
Thank you for sharing that, because it's such a deeply personal and real experience that you had. I would love to have you share if there are any things that you do, any mindset, exercises, like, is there anything that you do that supports you when things are particularly messy?
I just lost my job right before the holiday break last year. It was the first time in my life. I've never been laid off before, never been fired before. I haven't even had a really negative performance review since I was in my 20s. So this was definitely like a shock to the system. And I was gutted. I was gutted. And I don't, it doesn't matter if the reasons are outside your control and purely financial or whatever. There's no way it doesn't feel like rejection, right? And I was definitely grieving over the holidays. Again, dark time. And this was my MO. Number one, feel your feelings. I felt rejected. I felt grief. I had to go through it and allow myself that time to process who was there for me. My husband, my friends, some of that same core of personal, career people were more than willing to extend hands, take calls, network with me, introduce me to headhunters that I didn't know, who, by the way, is how I landed my next job because of one of those introductions and connections, right? It's amazing how it all works out. But I would say, let yourself feel your feeling. And then when you feel like you're hitting the bottom, you press up and bounce off. But that was when I did my what's next. What do I want? What will my North Star be for the next chapter? And I would say whenever you are really feeling in that mess, that is the time to do the introspection and to get clear on what you want. Because, Daniel Pink, I'm sure your listeners know of him, but he's the author of Drive. And he did this great podcast once. And what's the first thing you do when you have a plan and you have a goal? The very first question that you ask as a human is, how am I going to get there? How? But you can't ask the how until you know the what or the where. Where am I going? What do I want? And then you can, right? So it starts with clarity of that, call it what you want, vision, North Star. So that's definitely my recipe. Try and allow myself some grace and space to feel whatever it is I'm feeling. Lean on those trusted, safe advisors, batteries, your supporters, in your network, because everybody has them. And then get clear. Like really take the time to get clear about what you want. And then you can put in place your action plan and try and push off to get out of the mess.
I love what you just shared, because one of the things that I notice so often with clients who might be going through a challenging time like that is not permitting themselves to actually grieve. And you have to, right? Like for you to even get to that point where you could then sit down and go, okay, now what do I want? Until that stuff is out, it's very difficult, right? To create that vision for the future that's optimistic and exciting, right?
I could not see it, Nini. And then like you're talking to someone, I meditate regularly, I pray, I journal. My journal's right here on my desk, never far from me. I'm always jotting down observations, what I want, what I think, gratitude. Gratitude is another practice I believe in daily, right? Like 3 things you're grateful for. And that nothing shifts your attitude like gratitude, right? Sorry for the cheesy rhyme, but it's true. Yeah. But I was just in it, and I couldn't do any of that. It was not available to me until I really felt all the feelings of grief and rejection and fear. It's all human and you're not alone in it, but that's right. You have to give yourself the space, because I think after then you can be a little bit more clear-minded about, okay, let me look up. Let me look eyes to the horizon. What's next?
Yeah. Beautiful. So Kelly, we're about to wrap up, but I'd love to know if there's anything else that you would love to impart with our audience.
Identity, actions, feelings, right? Start with identity. Who do you want to show up in the world? Who do you want to be, whether it's your personal, the way you show up in your personal life or the way you show up in your work life? Have a very clear view of who that person is. And then you can start to dissect and or maybe build up. Oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do to go achieve that. And it really, I think that's where it starts, Amy, is your clarity of purpose and vision.
Kelly, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Thriving in the Messy Middle. Some weeks, you'll hear me in conversation with extraordinary women. Other weeks will be solo episodes where I'll share mindset shifts to help you thrive right where you are. And don't forget, you'll also find my messy middle moments in your feed. These are short solo reflections with a quick burst of clarity and encouragement to help you stay grounded. So be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if today spoke to you, share it with a friend or leave a review. This really helps others find the show. And check out the show notes for everything we mentioned today. And for more articles, resources, and ways we can work together, visit chooseaw.com. I'll leave you with this. You are the most worthwhile project you will ever work on. So until next time, Keep thriving, even in the messy middle.